Hello, hello, guys. In today's episode, I interview Jodie, who is a longtime client of Summit Strength. And inside this episode, she shares some really interesting insights through her journey of training for hiking, and specifically how she's used specific training to overcome a whole range of different aches or pains and limitations which were troubling her on the trail, and how her training has allowed her to step into bigger, longer, more challenging hikes than she has done in quite a while. Now, this episode's filled with some great insights around the training she's done, the mindset she's taken, and the workouts and exercises worked for her, and I really do hope you get some value out of it. So that's enough from me today. Let's get into it. Hey, my name is Rowan Smith, and I want to welcome you to the Training for Trekking podcast. Now, this is the world's very first podcast which is entirely dedicated to helping you train, prepare, and conquer your upcoming hike, trek, or mountain adventure. So once a week, I'm going to be giving you quality and practical information on the subjects of physical preparation for trekking, dealing with altitude, and nutrition on the trail, so you can know everything you need to be doing to have the best chance of a safe, enjoyable, and successful adventure. So now you know what you're in for. Let's get into today's episode. All right, so welcome, Jodie. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, Rowan, it's good to be here and do this.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, so I'm very excited to have you on board. So I reckon best place to start, as always, is do you just want to give the listeners a little bit of a rundown around sort of where you're from, who you are, what you do, and a bit of your background in hiking.
Yeah, so I'm Jodie. I come from Sydney. I work as an architect, and for my background in hiking, was something I came into a little bit later. I took a year out at uni working. I got into yoga, and we did a trip up in the mountains, did some climbing and some abseiling, and I was completely and utterly hooked. The same week, I went and joined a outdoor group, and I was off doing all sorts of stuff. I went back, finished uni, and it was a pretty tough time at that time when I graduated for work, and I decided to look for some work in the outdoors, and I ended up being an outdoor ed instructor, a canoe instructor, climbing instructor, hiking, canoeing. I did that in Australia and the UK, and I did it for about 6 years before I finally went back into architecture. So a bit of experience in the industry.
Yeah, how good. So here's a tough question off that. What was your favorite activity to teach? Did you have one as an instructor?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I mean, I suppose at the time that I was doing it, my massive passions were both canyoning and climbing, and I really enjoyed teaching both of those. I worked with a variety of different people. So I worked a lot on school camps, but I also worked with juveniles, and I really enjoyed that work. I think what I most enjoyed was watching people get out of their comfort zones but find places to thrive in the outdoors. And it was a great leveler for people that thought they couldn't do these things, that everyone seemed to find something that they could do and were good at.
Yeah, fantastic. How good. So I guess where I want to start this episode is, we'll go back to when we sort of started chatting and we started working together. So, when we did start working together, through Summit Strength, like what were you originally wanting to train for? And what was the reason why you originally, reached out to us?
Well, I didn't have any big trip planned or anything like that. And it was really more that I wasn't finding that I was getting out as much as I wanted to. I wasn't keeping up with my mates, some of whom are still in the outdoor industry. And I was in quite a bit of pain. I'd been struggling with a lot of tendinitis through my body. Going downhill was becoming really difficult, and I could just see an end to where I was going. And I really wanted to get back into doing what I loved and enjoyed in the outdoors. So it was more about trying to be more comfortable on my hikes, enjoy them more, be in less pain, and be able to get out and do more with my friends and try not to slow everyone down.
So tell us a little bit about the training that you did do through Summit Strength, with your program, what it involved, what did it look like? Talk us through that.
So I suppose when I started, I think one of the surprises was that it seemed pretty easy. I had been going to a gym and doing, a lot of the classic HIIT and everything else that you end up doing at the gym. And so by comparison, the programs were smaller, which meant that they were a lot more achievable, and the exercises didn't feel that hard initially. And yet, as I concentrated on them and had to do them, I could definitely feel them working, and the results were absolutely there. That said, as we progressed through and exercises got harder, I definitely noticed that as well, and there were certainly some great challenges put in there. But I loved the fact that it was really attainable to do everything.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I know you were doing at some point, definitely ramped up to some pretty advanced exercises, to say the least. And there are a few ones that I threw in there that I was like, well, I can't even do, but we'll see how Jodie goes. She's doing this for a while and you surprised me. So that was pretty good. So I guess, throughout it all, was there anything in there, that was a little bit different that, maybe you weren't expecting or that you hadn't done before?
There was a lot in there that I hadn't done before. I think that was one of the great things for me, was that when I came into doing this, everything was quite different to what I had been doing. And I mean, that made it more interesting, but it also meant to me that there was more chances that this was heading towards the answers that I needed, because clearly what I had been doing wasn't working for me. So, I like the fact that the exercises were really good at targeting multiple things at once. And clearly, the focus on them being for hiking was obviously working for me, what with the problems I had with my feet, my knees, my hips, my shoulders. Yeah, I was pretty riddled.
So talk us through then, throughout the process, were there any sort of particular roadblocks that you ran into along the way? And, and if so, like, how did you go about overcoming them?
I think I started with roadblocks in actual fact, and certainly got hit with a few along the way. When I started, I'd been suffering with vertigo, or BPPV. So I wasn't allowed to lay down and do exercises. So we had to come up with a whole bunch of exercises that I could do. And then when that finally got better, I got hit with it twice more. I had a couple of sort of injuries with my knees throughout, which is not unusual given the poor state that they were in. But what was really good was, the approach, or your famous thing of no matter, what the exercise is, there's at least 6 other variations that we can do, and there's always a way to be able to target what we need to do. And so, the ability to just swap out the exercises and find something that did work, that meant I didn't have to lay down and do an exercise because I had vertigo, or didn't have to have a lot of head movement, that, worked with when I was having lots of cramping issues with my calves, or reduced impact on my knee for a little while so I could build it back up, or even being able to, do a little bit extra on one knee to get it going a little bit further. That was a really good process of getting through it. The fact that no matter what, there was a way to move forward.
And throughout the process, were there any particular sort of favorite exercises you came across, or favorite workouts that you thought that, not only you enjoyed a little bit more, but maybe you felt really saw the benefits of?
Yeah, funnily enough, one of my favourites is the Palloff press. That was definitely one I had never even remotely come across before. And I really, I could really always feel that one working quite well and working multiple things. The ones that really surprised me is, I think the vast majority of my life, I have hated lunges. And I've actually grown to not mind them. And the other one that probably surprised me is the pistol squats. When I first did them, when you gave me the test to do them, my effort was abysmal. I would never have thought that I would grow to like that as an exercise. Except maybe the really extreme ones you gave me at the end.
Yeah, just my little joke. It's like, oh, we'll see how she goes with them. We'll see if they're doable or not. But for the listeners there, so the exercise Jodie first mentioned there, the pale-off press or the pale-off press, I never know exactly how to pronounce it myself. Basically, that's a core exercise that I do get a lot of our hikers to do, and I've talked about in this podcast a few times. And it essentially involves getting a band, attaching it to a door or a pole or something like that, and doing some movement that works specifically something that's called anti-rotation strength. So it's teaching the body to sort of fight rotation, or something pushing or pulling it to, rotating basically. And for hikers, it's an interesting one that a lot of people haven't really come across it so much unless they've trained it in a specific sport. But for a hiker, it can be really, really beneficial for anyone who does struggle with a bit of back pain, anyone who's sort of carrying a bit of a heavier load on their back and they need a bit extra stability there. Anyone who's sort of going on a bit of a rougher terrain, or they're going to get snags or whatever it may be. And it's something I love for hikers. So if you haven't seen it before, check out the Pale-Off Press, PALLOF press on YouTube, or come join the Training for Trekking, Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. And I can show you a few videos in there. But yeah, sort of that I just make that point on that front. So I guess, we talk quite a bit about the training then. So let's talk about your hiking then, Jodie. So, as you went through the training and as you went through the whole process, did you notice any difference to your hiking at all?
Yeah, it was a complete and utter game changer. And it wasn't just me that noticed it. The friends that I go hiking with were amazed in the difference that they saw. And for them to bring it up and mention it, was great, because it really felt like it was all so worthwhile. And I was putting a lot of energy into, trying to make sure I was doing the right thing. So I was noticeably faster on the track, but particularly downhill. That was huge. I remember the first time that, even though it wasn't much, I went down a set of stairs without pain in my knees, and I had given up thinking that was a possibility. I was more sure-footed. My friends could notice that I was in less pain. They could read it in my face, and I was enjoying it so much more, which was great.
And then throughout it all, with your hiking specifically, were there any particular challenges you ran into, anything that went wrong, or any sort of issues you faced, with your hiking?
Look, I have a tendency to maybe try and sort of do more than I should sooner than I should. So I certainly, threw myself out there and pushed myself in a few instances and came back sore and sorry for myself. I definitely did that with my knees on big, big downhills with carrying heavy weights. But my rate of, I suppose, healing afterwards got a lot better as I went through the program more and more. And so any time out I had to give myself the chance to recover from those things got better. And I think you always gave good advice about, getting in a bit of downtime before I tackled anything too big, and that made a massive difference as well.
And then moving forward now, we've sort of, how long did we work together? It was 9 months, is that right? Or was it even longer than that?
I think it might have ended up being slightly longer than 9 months, yeah.
Slightly longer, there we go. So after the 9, 10, 11 months or whatever it may have been, what is your sort of plan of attack for your hiking in the future and keeping your training moving forward?
So I think, I'm basically been now developing my own little sort of training off the back of all the assistance that you've given on setting up a means of training going forward, so that I still have my strength sessions that I'm doing. I still have my hill or stair sessions that I'm doing, loaded pack. And I really just want to try and keep it up. I don't want to go back to a gym, which was not working for me. I'm pretty happy with the system, and then obviously, getting out and making sure that I get in the relevant trips before I have a big trip, which I finally have. I finally have the Overland planned for February, which is very exciting. I think that idea of having goals is probably a big one too. One of the things in your program, far beyond all the physical stuff, was a lot of the mental stuff in there as well, and that idea about having a goal to work towards. You said to set some goals, and I didn't really have any planned trips or anything like that. So you said, set them even if they're a little bit beyond what you're doing. And I did that, and I'd like to kind of, continue doing that, because the amazing thing was I didn't think I was going to tick off those goals, but I ticked off every single one of them, wrote a whole new set, and then ticked all those off. So that was great. If that's a really good motivational way to keep you going as well.
Yeah, amazing. Out of curiosity, can you remember what those goals were specifically, or any of them?
Yeah, so I think my very first one was, quite simply going and doing the coast track down in the Royal National Park as a day trip instead of as an overnight. And I hadn't done anything of that length for a long time. That was the first one. I think the second one was just, doing some overnighters that were where you walk 20 Ks a day. And I definitely did that on more than one overnighter, including down around Wilson's Prom. Then another one was, I think, an overnighter of a particular length of days. It might have been 4 days or something like that. I used to do a lot of that all the time, but I hadn't again in a long time. So I ticked that off. Yeah, they were some of them that I can remember.
I love it. And then, beyond Overland, then here's the other question. If the world does get back to normal anytime soon, what else is on the bucket list? Is there anything particular that you've been eyeing off for a little while now?
Oh, my God. Travel is my passion. So, and I've always combined travel with the outdoors. So I love the combination of, looking at great architecture in the cities and getting out on some great trails and hiking throughout the world. So I can't wait to take off and get into all of that again. My partner and I have an enormously long list of trails that we want to do all around the world. Heaps of them in the US. I mean, there's some amazing trails there. I'm not necessarily going to go and hike the PCT in one hit, but there's certainly sections of it that I'd love to do. Yeah, it's huge. Getting back to New Zealand and doing some of the trails there that we haven't done is high on my list as well. There's so much.
Yeah, make it a whole
Dolomites,
episode on that.
back to the Dolomites. I'd love to get back to the Dolomites. That's just a stunning part of the world as well.
Yeah, how good. A few decent options there. Hopefully, hopefully it all becomes a bit more doable sometime soon, but I love it. And then I guess if anyone, was listening to this podcast, and obviously they are listening to this because they're interested in training for hiking, because that's exactly what it's about. But if anyone was sort of interested in, maybe starting their training journey or, increasing the ante on their training for their hiking or whatever it may be, like, what advice would you give them?
I suppose probably a few things. I think that, when I started doing this, I thought, well, my hobby's hiking, and what I do to hike is I hike, and that's my training. And then I go to the gym, and that's my training. And it didn't really occur to me that the far more obvious thing to do was to go, if my hobby is hiking and, instead of training for stuff that's relevant just to be at a gym, why don't I train for stuff that's relevant for hiking? It makes sense in hindsight, but it took me quite a while to actually probably put that together. So, if the outdoors is what you love and you want to get better, then the training you're doing should be targeted towards it. It seems so obvious now. And I think that, I would recommend anyone to jump onto your Facebook group at the very least on that training for trekking and hiking. I think there's just some utterly, utterly amazing tips on there. But probably number one, if you feel that you need the assistance or the help, then take the training that's suited to what you want to do.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. And as you said, in hindsight, it seems common sense, but it's just, there's always hindsight is a way of that. And such a simple shift, but can make such a big difference. Awesome. I'm glad you said that. And then I guess as we wrap things up today, is there anything else that we sort of haven't covered today, or anything else that you wanted to add, or anything like that you wanted to pop in while we're here?
No, look, I spoke about the little sort of goals that you put forward. I think that they're also great because every time you said you achieve a goal, you reward yourself. So that's a really great excuse for me to explore my outdoor kit addictions that I have. But I really do love that. I think that's a great thing for anyone to follow with. But the only other thing I'd say is, like, if you're slowing down, you got more aches and pains, you don't have to be put up with it. I thought that was just going to be the normal. That was what I was going to have to go through. I was getting older. I was getting a bit slower, but it's certainly, I've been surprised how much I have improved through doing this. So don't put up with the pain. Do something.
Awesome.
And with that, a massive thank you to you. So for all your assistance, like I said, it's been a game changer, and I'm really glad I did this.
No, it's been my absolute pleasure, Jodie, and it's been so fantastic to see you put so much into the process. It's been so fantastic to see the results that you've seen, because you deserve every single thing that's come to you. And it's been so fantastic having you on this episode today to chat through it and share a little bit of insight and around all this stuff, and particularly coming from someone who's been through this, they've seen the results, but also someone who's been part of the industry for quite a significant amount of time, or at certain periods in your life, just to sort of go and get that perspective as well. It's been it's absolutely awesome. So thank you so much for coming on today. I think it has been really, really interesting hearing your insights and really, really valuable. And thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you, Rowan.